I'm ready whenever you are.
Yes, we are live now.
Oh,
Hello,
we
everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm live today with astrologer Jamie. Hello, Jamie.
are. Hi, Lada. How are you?
I really look forward always to your videos, to your astrology updates because they're so unique. Like you mentioned, you have a lot of Dharma yoga, which is to create something unique and original rather than repeating the same old stuff. So I'm fascinated by what you have to share. Jamie has prepared a little bit nuggets of wisdom for each of the 12 signs. It's best to be applied from the rising sign, but I suppose even from the moon and sun, but the rising is very specific. And Jamie will show us how to look differently at the 12 signs. Plus, she has prepared a masterclass on each of the 12 signs, which will be live. Maybe you can check tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. We'll have everything there if you want to learn about each of the 12 signs much more in depth with Jamie. You can just choose a sign if you prefer or get them all. But yeah, we'll figure out the details after this video. And I can't wait to see what you're offering. So, yes, Jamie.
You. So, yes, I want to talk about just some unique insights that I've found, and I'm going to talk about each rising sign, but I'm going to go opposite, starting with Pisces because I want to be different. And I'm a Pisces sun, so I'm going to start with my sun first. So, one of the things that I want to talk about is how Pisces can thrive on land. Because out of all of these zodiac signs, water signs are the least designed to live on Earth, but Pisces in particular can have a difficult time because they're represented by fish. They live in water and we live on land and stuff. And it's the most egoless sign. And the thing is that we're like, this is why people might not expect it, but Pisces risings, I would say, more than other signs, actually really need the support of Leo in their sixth house. And I've noticed this a lot because I've lived in LA for most of my adult life. I've had clients that are actors, and celebrities. And something that I've noticed is that, particularly, one of the ways this is almost like a remedy for especially Pisces just to like thrive, but also Pisces who are struggling with addiction and stuff. Because the reason why Pisces often struggle with addiction is because we don't live in a world that's designed for Pisces. It's difficult. So they
Mm,
want to escape reality. And the thing is that Pisces is the most egoless sign and the sun rules ego. And we need ego to survive. We're spiritual beings here to have a human experience. And Pisces are very mastered or more inclined in the spiritual realm, but they are living on earth and they really struggle with living on earth. And so this is why I feel that for Pisces in particular, it's so important to use imagination and create realities for your well-being using the energy of solar support. And and this is just such a great way because drugs are a way to enter a different dimension. And by just creating it on Earth, you can create sort of that like opportunity. And there's different things that you can use. Yes, working with the energy of Pisces, using religion, spirituality, prayer, things of that nature. But it's almost like it's a weird metaphor, but like the sun is like oxygen, and if Pisces doesn't have that, because Pisces needs like their own source of oxygen in order to breathe on land and stuff, and so otherwise Pisces can slowly die. Pisces rules death. And so one of the things that I found is that Pisces, you have Leo in your whole house system, in your sixth house, of the best way for you to manage problems, the best way for you to manage your health, your ideal environment, your daily routines and stuff. So being creative is so important. And so I always encourage Pisces rising people to have a portable and easy way to carry art around, whatever that looks like. Make it really user friendly so you always have access to it. Get clear on what your soul purpose is. Leo is and the sun rules consistency because it's a fixed sign. It rises and descends every day. And it's in your sixth house of your daily routines. This is so important to have a spiritual practice, learn and study about spiritual leaders, be in a work environment where you are surrounded by other Leo archetypes. where everyone is a leader, it's a creative environment, everyone kind of gets to be able to express themselves. Doing it daily confidence exercises is really beneficial, especially for Pisces people that have low self-esteem. You hear me say this a lot. The next sign is always the resource of the previous sign. And so the next sign of Pisces is Aries, and Aries people are really bold, right? So you want to do things where you speak up, you want to be daring, things of that nature. But also working with your third house is really beneficial because the third house sextiles, it's an easy aspect from your ascendant, which is your third house of communicating, but it's also about this is where Taurus is. So again, there's this theme of using consistency. Taurus is a fixed sign, and using your voice as a way to express the things that you want. And a lot of Pisces risings, your environment really matters, which I've covered in your sixth house, but also in your third house of your day-to-day environment, surrounding yourself with people who are stable, consistent, reliable, because Pisces do need a little bit of that stability and stuff. And some of the best Pisces rising, the healthiest ones that I've known, they are really close with their siblings, they're close with their neighbors, they have a good set of like friends and family, things of that nature. And so developing sort of that consistency is really important. And when you do this, this also allows people to operate out of the healthy qualities of Pisces, because Pisces is an isolated sign. It's a water sign. It rules the lone wolf and stuff. But when Pisces aren't, they don't have a healthy relationship with themselves, in your eighth house of trauma, you have Libra, where people can attach to another person because Pisces can have a sense of identity and they can over identify and become codependent.
Codependent, yes, very
Exactly.
yeah.
So really, this is where Leo can help you to like not just feel more alive and connected and stuff. And the spiritual aspect of it that I forgot to mention is that Pisces is the most spiritual sign. It needs to be connected to spirituality. And the sun is God energy. It's truth energy. It's that connection. So this is where working with Leo can be really beneficial for Pisces in order to feel better about yourself. This is a way to embrace your independent spirit, and just make sure that you're in an environment where you are consistently, habitually being inspiring, optimistic, and generous. Learn to enjoy your company so that when you do connect with others, you're doing it in a way where you're both meaningfully contributing, because in your eighth house, it's about you plus another person. And so this is very much like this energy where Pisces really benefits from the sun and the light and stuff, so that the connections that you make come from that solar energy, that like generosity, that abundance. Pisces and Leo are both very generous signs and stuff. So
But Pisces find Leos more like egoic, obnoxious. They have like a love-hate relationships because Pisces are like they're so loud, you know. And I've observed I have quite a few Pisces in my life. One is Pisces Moon. She's an
Mhm.
artist, she's a musician,
Oh, super
but in
talented.
her everyday day to life, she's a mess. Like especially
Yeah.
Pisces Moons, I've often seen this. And her mom is Leo rising with stellium in Taurus, those two grounding energies. So she calls her mom for everything 30 times per day. Mama, where is, and she carries around pens and paper, wherever she goes, she draws, she writes, she carries her guitar
Wow.
everywhere. But she needs to call her stellium Taurus mom and Leo rising for almost like to ground herself. It's for it's
Yeah.
for everyday things. Where are my socks? I'm gonna eat this. Just to keep in touch for the day-to-day things. Otherwise, she's too much out there, and this Tauri and third house energy and sixth house Leo energy of her mom really grounds her. So that was
Yeah.
very interesting observation that
Absolutely. And it's such a huge thing. And I have actually found that a lot of Pisces rising people do tend to do well living in like a family home unit for that reason, to have that environment. And I would say Pisces people, it's so important to feel at home, because you don't feel at home. Like we don't feel at home. It's not natural to us. So we have to put a little bit more intentional effort into the way that we do things. And one of the things is, like you mentioned, like your friend is really scattered and stuff, having your third house of like what you think about, really developing a stable mindset. And so when I teach astrology, I refer to Taurus as like the sign that teaches us how to human. It's the most earth fixed sign. It understands money. Like, it understands the world. They're very stable, security oriented and stuff like that. And so I talk about how important it is for Pisces risings to develop that stable mindset, really developing that understanding of how to human that connects you to the world using your own resources, And interestingly, you already covered this, but one of the things, like some examples I wrote is like related to like Taurus and like stuff is like this could be grounding yourself through food, through history, through family, money, whatever it is for you that anchors and secures you. This is something that's really important. And with Jupiter also connecting your 10th house of your ideals, Pisces already being an unrealistic sign, it's the Delulu sign and stuff. You're here to have big goals, dream big, and trust the process. And your personal goals is going to be your path to success. And so it's important to use it as your compass. And I think this is something that a lot of Pisces people forget because they might be like pushovers or people pleasers, or they put other people ahead of themselves. But it's like actually the most spiritual and meaningful thing you can do is to live a successful life where you focus on what are your personal goals, and because that's where your ideals come from. And so your 10th house of ideals and your rising sign are both ruled by both of those things. And so you have to make it bigger than yourself, but it should still be around you. Like that's really important.
Fascinating.
But yeah. So those are my thoughts for Pisces. Moving on to Aquarius. And Aquarius is an interesting sign because even though Pisces are, oh, actually, I did also want to mention briefly that the things that I said about Pisces, this can also technically apply to not like house and sign placement wise, but for Geminis, Cancers, and Leo risings as well. These are people who like it's not like you have to be an actor, but these are people who tend to go into acting because they do well creating, using imagination and creating different worlds and realities and stuff. So really prioritizing these things is going to be important. Sometimes the most practical thing you can do, depending on your sign and your elements, is to dream big. Like that can actually be the most strategic power move for you. So now I want to talk about Aquarius risings. And what I find interesting is that because Pisces rules drugs, people tend to think that Pisces struggle with addiction. And yes, that's true. But I'd say that Aquarius risings actually deal a lot more with addiction issues and stuff, particularly because like the next sign is Pisces. So it's almost a coping mechanism. I'm not saying like, okay, if you're an Aquarius, like just keep doing it, but it's like it's sort of like it's like it's something that it's more of a coping mechanism, whereas with Pisces it's an escapism. So if you create a different way to escape, it's different, whereas with Aquarius it's a fixed sign, and there's these challenges that come with it. But I feel like for a lot of us, it's because when we're not being who we are, it becomes more tempting to want to have to escape, to have a coping mechanism. And so with Aquariuses, it's important to be strategically weird. And I would say that the two most important things for Aquariuses to do is to be weird as fuck and face your fears. These are the two things, because Aquariuses are ruled by Saturn, and Saturn rules your 12th house of fears, and Aquarius, which is you as a person, which is about being really weird. And so this is such a huge thing because when you don't do this, your unprocessed fears can keep you stuck through social distractions. As an air sign, you can also kind of be in a fixed loop because Aquarius is a fixed sign and stuff, and you can get distracted by other people, kind of lose yourself in there and whatnot. And one of the best things that you can do is, yes, working with your 12th and your first house, but because it's Saturn ruled and Saturn is material in nature, it tends to work better in the material world. Aquarius is an air sign, and so one of the best things, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is for Aquariuses to say weird ass shit. I'm telling you, it's like In your fifth house, you have chatty Gemini in your house of self-expression. Both Aquarius and Gemini rules your nervous system. And so by talking to yourself, by learning to feel comfortable, talking about weird things that excite you, that light you up, that where you have like an interest-based nervous system, and really embracing Aquariuses are one of the neurodivergent signs. Being neurodivergent is one of the best things that you can do, talking to yourself. And it sounds weird, but I actually have this on my YouTube channel. I talked about um Aquarius be strategic as fuck. It's like a way that you can dismantle the toxic patriarchy by talking to yourself. It's this weird thing that I do. A little bit of spoiler alert. So I'm a Cancer rising, and in my 12th house, I have Gemini. 12th house is about prayers, spirituality. Gemini is walking, talking. And so I do this thing where I walk and pray and manifest. I set my intentions. When you're moving, you make more connections between your left and right brain hemisphere. So I talk to myself, and I really don't give a fuck that I look weird. I think it's weird and dangerous when people don't talk to themselves, because the most important relationship you have is the relationship you have with yourself. We talk to people to get to know people. If you don't talk to yourself and you don't know yourself, you like ignorance is dangerous. So I talk to myself, and I can't tell you how many guys have expressed their fears around that. And when I tell them about the value of it, they're like, oh my God, I think I'm going to try it. So I make this joke saying that this is my free way that I dismantle like the toxic patriarchy by being weird and stuff. But it's very much this thing where talking to yourself, especially in ways what would you say before you were socially conditioned, and getting into this practice can be really beneficial for you. It can help you to really make you stand out. And oftentimes like Aquariuses will either get lost in a crowd because they're afraid to be who they are and stand out, or they're so independent that they attract the masses, right? And so that's the version that the latter is what Aquariuses are meant to do, that you should do. And that's embracing being weird. That's also embracing the fact that you have neurodivergent markers in your chart. And one of the biggest things, because Aquarius is on your ascendant, is I recommend this to almost all of my Aquarius rising clients, my Leo rising clients too, because they have Aquarius opposing them. So Aquarian things can cause health issues to your first house. But Aquariuses have to regulate your nervous system. And the thing that's really frustrating is that a lot of resources on the best way to regulate your nervous system isn't designed to be neurodivergent friendly, even though neurodivergents have the most dysregulated nervous system. And so what I always recommend is there is a specific brand that's designed for neurodivergence called Seeking Health, and they have a vitamin B12 that's designed for neurodivergent that supports proper methylation.
Mhm.
And it's basically a process that our body goes through, but neurodivergents don't effectively metabolize and methylate properly. So a lot of times people will be like, oh, they'll hear, oh, I should take vitamin B12. And then they take the standardized methylcobalamin. And what it does is that it overwhelms your nervous system. It overwhelms your body that's more prone to toxic buildup. It's now having to overwork itself. And then people actually experience new problems. So yes, vitamin B12 helps, but I do recommend, if you are neurodivergent, if you're ADHD, autistic, experience a lot of trauma, have a dysregulated nervous system. I've seen this even with Sagittarius risings that have like a stellium in their 12th house, Scorpio, Leo risings, you have Aquarius opposing you, Gemini risings. You obviously, you guys aren't the only ones, but you guys are the most predisposed. I really encourage you to check out the Seeking Health. I'm not paid, you guys, just but
So it's like the methylated version of B12.
yeah, exactly. It supports methylation, and they have two different versions of vitamin B12. You can use both of them, but the hydroxyadeno is the one that I use, and that's the one that a lot of my clients get a lot of benefit from. And
Because I'm Aquarius rising and I'm extremely anxious. I mean, for the smallest, excitable, even. It's not like I'm afraid. It's just the smallest noise, I can jump from it, like
yeah,
over stimulated nervous system. That's why sometimes I like want to spend hours and hours on my own because of, because literally sounds and things can activate me, overexcite me,
Yeah,
I'm afraid that in the evening to read something interesting or exciting, because then I can be up till the morning. So I totally understand. And for me, for years, I was self-soothing by drinking and smoking because it was down-regulating the nerve.
exactly.
I thought it helped me a lot because I didn't have other methods, and still it's very hard for me to regulate this excitability. That's why this is actually correct what you said. Statistically, Aquarius, people with strong Aquarius, especially Aquarius rising, have the highest degree of addictions. And for me, this is maybe this overstimulated nervous system. They're self-medicating, while Pisces is the escaping. It's a different way of, you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
what you said.
It's more the high functioning version of it.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's something that I recommend. As far as like working with the 12th house stuff, I'm not going to talk about it as much, but some of the patterns that I've seen, which I thought was interesting, it's obviously not everyone, but because Saturn rules your 12th house, and Saturn is one of the father archetypes, and then in your 10th house of your father, you have Scorpio. This can also I've seen two things. I've seen trauma related to success, especially from previous incarnations, or also trauma with like the paternal lineage and stuff. So doing energy healing around that can also be really beneficial. But accessing getting into a meditative state to identify what your fears are, getting clear on what you need in order to feel secure, and putting those things in action are going to be really beneficial. But really working through your fears is going to be really beneficial around success. And also, I've noticed a theme that's a little bit more esoteric, which is that they could be related to your paternal lineage. I've seen this a lot with Aquarius risings. I thought that was interesting.
They
But
all have problems with the father figure. We all the Aquarius rising people I know. Some
me
power
too,
struggle or something.
yeah, I'm like, ooh, okay. Um,
Scorpio is our 10th house, like you said, and
yeah,
Saturn is the planet of the father ruling the 12th house of karma. So
yeah,
that's true. Wow.
it's definitely, and I've been trained as an energy healer, and I have strong Aquarius in my chart, and I've found that a lot of Aquarius people also tend to do well with theta healing because it's very airy and it's a type of energy healing that basically the energy healer will regulate your brain waves. So there's always a frequency in a brain wave, and so like for example, like if you try to use Reiki on an air sign or an Aquarius sign that's like la la la, like they're like not in their body, they're somewhere else. Sometimes the Reiki doesn't necessarily like they're not present enough for it. So it's like when you're working with ungrounded signs, using the ungrounded energy healing, I find tend to be a little bit
You
more
know what
complimentary.
worked a lot? Brain tuner. I got a brain tuner
Yeah,
that's sending it. You put it here near the ear, so with cathodes, and it's sending sort of a vibration. It took me out of a depression in 10 days. It was crazy.
yeah,
It regulated something with my brain because
yeah.
I couldn't feel pleasure and joy, and this thing snapped me out, like
Yeah.
rewired the
I'm
brain. So that's
Aquarius and the stuff up here really makes a huge difference.
wow.
And then in my master class, I do talk about like the three rulers of Aquarius, and I blend the Saturn, Uranus, in modern astrology, and in Vedic astrology, it's Rahu. And I used to babysit, so I noticed different kids, and I realized I'm like, oh, there's a way to like, there's actually a flow, a strategic process to it. So I'm excited
Really,
to share
that'll be
guys.
interesting. Anyone who wants to check it, I think by tomorrow we'll have the course on with the description under the video.
So now we can talk about
What do you
Capricorn.
mean? Like they flip from Saturn to Uranus to North Rahu? Like there's some
Yeah,
process.
it's yeah, it is. Yeah. It's
Okay.
like consistent disruption and then it's like go kind of. It's a whole I feel like you probably have put it together in your head. Because
I
actually,
can be
I was
very
watching
consistent and
Taurus
then I
when that came
go
to me.
and I go crazy, then consistent, then I go crazy. So absolutely.
Exactly. It's a loop, and that's okay because Aquarius is a fixed sign, so it's a good
Stop the
like
loop.
fixity. It works with like your chart. Yeah. Okay, so for Capricorn risings. So with Capricorn, I don't even actually really have a title for this one, but I believe that matriarchal wisdom can restore the challenges of Capricorn. And I say this because Capricorn is Saturn ruled, but it's a feminine planet. And I find that so much of the damage in Capricorn comes from toxic patriarchy. And I feel like the feminine wisdom can really heal that. And part of that I say from just different, I see it in observation in my life, but also through astrology. And one of the most maddening things for me, and I haven't been able to let this go, and it drives me insane, is that in feng shui, they say don't have dried flowers in your home as a decor. Like it's to have dried flowers, it symbolizes a death, and you're inviting in death. And I think that that concept is so damaging, so stupid, because it's also one of the cultures that love tea. You have dried flowers all up in your fucking kitchen. Like, don't tell me that you're inviting in death. Then stop drinking liquid death. That is the dumbest thing ever. I'm sorry, but like, it's just certain things people aren't thinking it through. And the thing is, like, we talk about how dried flowers are bad and stuff because we glorify youth. And once the flower is no longer young, we throw it away and add it to the waste pollution when there are ways to reuse it, recycle it, give it new life, to see value. It actually becomes more potent and more healing, just like women do over time, where, like, as we get older, the crone, the eldest woman, the mother archetype, they have the most wisdom, they have the most power. And I feel like it's important for us to appreciate these things. And when I look at power and I see how gatekeepery Capricorns can be, where they um like Capricorn is about success and power and all of these great things, but sometimes people are gatekeepery with it, and they're just holding on a little too tight because they're afraid of letting go, and they're clinging to things, and they're not embracing change. And I feel like that's a problem with Venus, with youth and stuff. And I think that it's important, in order to really appreciate and get the powers from Capricorn, to embrace new forms of power and old age or wisdom or time. It holds power, history, mastery, security, and wisdom. And from an astrological perspective, I see this from the fact that in your 10th house of ideals, you have Libra here. Libra is the ability to evaluate value, beauty, resource. And with the Libra representing a scale, representing a set of two, I recommend that you work on two things. With the first thing, I would say working with your both your first and second house. Think of it like using the energy of Libra scales, weighing two things. Your first house is Capricorn, your second house is Aquarius. And so in your first house, you're weighing the scale, and you want to think about what do you need in order to create secure, what is security to you, what do you need to create in order to feel safe. And that requires, with the energy of Capricorn, looking at history, looking at the test of time, looking at security, systemizing things, ancient wisdom and stuff. And so much of the challenges that we have in modern living actually comes from the fact that we are disconnected from modern reality and the things that actually are from ancient wisdom. And it's important to go back to those roots. And I feel like that's one of the best things that Capricorn can do, is to identify what success means for you, what security is for you, to really move about the world in a way that ensures this. And then the next sign that supports you is Aquarius. Think about how you can innovate that, because as great as Saturn and Capricorn is, it does also rule outdated things as well. And so things work until they don't. In order to create security, you have to innovate in a world that is constantly changing and evolving. So think about what you can do, how you can use your resources to innovate, to be more strategic. Capricorn is about success in a more solitary way, whereas Aquarius is success in a more um supportive way. And it works better with our biology because it's very much about how we are social creatures. We need the support of a group in order to succeed. And so working with that energy is going to be really beneficial for Capricorns. So that's something that it's really about working with time in a way that supports you. With Capricorn, look at what has worked in the past. When it doesn't work, let it go. And what's going to work in the future? What do you need to implement in the future? These are things that you can do. I'm so curious what you're doing, Lada. Sorry, I just see your hair randomly. We'll try to be focused, and I'm like, what's she doing? Sorry,
Uh,
very curious. Um,
Listening to
and
you while doing something behind the laptop. Sorry.
it's okay. And then the second thing that I recommend is with Capricorn, just as a way to prevent yourself from getting too stuck in the past. Because again, with Libra, the 10th house of success being the scale, I recommend using the scale of working with Capricorn and Cancer. Because Capricorn is about systemizing and strategizing, but it's also about ending things that don't work, things that are outdated, whereas Cancer is about giving, it's about bringing new things into the world. And I remember you were mentioning this in one of your classes where you were saying that like when we were born, we enter a Cancer portal, which makes sense. You know, the mother, you know, you're coming into the world for the first time. And so when you are leaving, you're exiting out of the Capricorn energy, which rules death. But as a Capricorn rising, you have it flipped. You know, you have Capricorn in this sign where you're giving birth to things. So it could be like things from the past can you give birth to that you can start that can help you? What do you need to let go of and stuff? But also the same thing with Cancer, where it's like sometimes because Capricorn can get stuck in the past, the energy of Cancer can be really beneficial working with what do you need, like you're structuring, that's great, but what else do you need to nurture that you were neglecting? What do you need to let go of? Are you being too rigid and too tight? What do you need to do to go with the flow? So this can be ways that stuck Capricorns can sort of have that like flow, is working with that energy of Cancer and basically looking at like what to structure and what to flow with essentially. And with Sagittarius, what notes did I put here? What do I want to talk about? So Sagittariuses and Gemini are on this like interesting axis. So there's so many different stories and folklores and myths with Sagittarius and Gemini. And there's one, and I don't know exactly where it's from, but there was this theory that someone said that the reason why Geminis are so scared of commitments and why Sagittarius craves freedom is, and I don't know if I really believe this, but I think it's an interesting concept, is that one of the Gemini twins is Sagittarius. And that's why Sagittarius loves freedom, because they were like stuck. And then Geminis are afraid of letting someone in because they're like, I got abandoned kind of thing, right? And so there's like this interesting Sagittarius wanting freedom and Gemini, which is about connection and bonding. On the opposite end, they're on the axis with each other. So with Sagittarius is, I think it's important to think about like with freedom, what energizes you versus what you shouldn't escape from. You know, Sagittarius is sometimes tried to, it's the runaway sign. You shouldn't always run away from everything, but there are things that it's important to not trap yourself into. And then with Gemini, thinking about what keeps you connected to both beneficial and harmful things. Kind of similar to what I was mentioning with Capricorn and Aquarius and how it's important to have that community. Sagittariuses can kind of go off and do their own thing, but it's like you still need support. And so that energy of Gemini and that connector energy is really beneficial, and kind of working with it is so important. And this is kind of a weird concept, but little bit of a unusual medical astrology thing. I recently discovered this concept called layer syndrome. I don't know if you're familiar with it,
No.
but it's basically when your upper and your lower body is misaligned from each other. And when it's just your upper body, they call it upper cross syndrome. When it's just your lower, they call it your lower cross syndrome. And so I found out that I have layer syndrome, and I'm like, oh my God, that explains why I have so many issues. And it started off because I was looking at like my C1 through C3, and it's misaligned, and it's, I think C3 or one of my lower ones is like pinching my frenetic nerve, or there's something, so I can't like breathe consciously. And there's a lot of these things where I'm physically disconnected and misaligned for my body, which is why a lot of the things I was doing wasn't working, like strength training and all these stuff to build my core muscles, because things were out of alignment. So this could be physical too, which is why I bring it up, because I do think that when people, Sagittarius risings, it's like if you're trying to escape, oftentimes sometimes people are trying to escape from themselves because they're literally half human, half horse, and they want to like embrace one side and not the other. And when you kind of get disconnected, whether this can be actually physically, I wanted to bring it up because I think a lot of people probably struggle with layer syndrome without realizing it. But this could also be like the way you're navigating your life, or maybe you're just split and not allowing yourself permission to really be all of who you are and stuff. That's when working with the energy of Gemini and being like, okay, how can you be more connected? Or are you just working with, like, metaphorically, one of your twins and not your other? What side of you are you neglecting? What do you need to connect with is really important. So these are things that I do recommend that Sagittarius risings do take a look at. And let me just pull up a chart here to see if I have anything extra here to add. I feel like the other thing is with Sagittariuses, I've come across a lot of Sagittariuses where oftentimes I want to always give information that's like less common so that people have resources. And a lot of times people hear like, oh, Sagittarius, you're ruled by the most optimistic, generous, happy sign, happy-go-lucky sign. But when people have a really heavy Scorpio, this is where people can experience a lot of issues. And especially if you have like a stellium here. And I've noticed that a lot of people who have sleep issues can actually be Sagittarius risings because they're physically active. If they have a lot of trauma, they don't feel safe, then they have a hard time sleeping, because going to sleep is one of the most vulnerable things you can do. And so for Sagittarius risings who struggle with stuff like this, you have Pisces in your fourth house of home doing family healing, previous incarnation healing and stuff. Working with lineage healing can be very, very beneficial, because that's also the other house that rules your that's ruled by Jupiter. Those are some things that you can
When you
definitely
talked about
look
the
into.
sleep of Sagittarius rising, I
With
I
uh-huh.
have the sleep. I have
Oh, I
two
can't hear
people.
you.
Can you hear
Lotta,
me?
Lotta, I can't hear
I'm
you.
hello. You sure you can't hear me? Oh,
I hope you guys have been able to hear me this whole time.
yes, I can hear you. You can't hear me?
Okay, I still can't hear you.
Okay. I'm not sure why.
I don't know what's going on.
Can
Oh
people can you write? Can people write in the comments if they can hear me?
no.
Oh, that's
But can you hear me?
yes, I hear you
Oh,
very
that's good. Man, I want to hear what you have to say. You have interesting stuff.
I don't know if anyone hears me, but I would say that many people with Sagittarius rising, I saw them
If anybody
night,
can read lips, feel free
they
to
dream
comment on
about
what
things.
Lotta is saying.
They're not hearing?
I still
Yes,
can't hear you.
they hear me. Other people hear
I
me.
mean, you can write it out if you want.
Okay.
So I should just keep going
Yeah.
then and talking, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. Um, Damn, I really want to hear what you were gonna say. Oh, others hear you. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Okay, and others can hear me too? That is so weird. Why doesn't the universe want me to hear what you have to say? That's so messed up. Okay, it's fine. Scorpio, right? Maybe because the universe is like, if you guys both talk, you'll never finish. So they're like, oh, we have to mute one of you guys. Okay, let me keep going for. I don't know if you can hear the background, but okay, so for Scorpio risings, I believe that out of all of the zodiac signs, Scorpios are the sign that has the most access to all of the elements, even though it's a water sign. So it has access to its own elements as a water sign, but it's ruled by fiery Mars, so it's very fiery as well. They're strategic like an air sign, and even though they don't have their own earth, they're ruled by scorpions that are very low to the ground. They have a good sense of timing with strategizing and stuff like that. So I find that Scorpios do best when they work with the reality that you guys have the most access to all of the different elements by first of all working with your sixth house Aries, because both your first and your sixth house are ruled by Mars, and Aries rule, and the sixth house is about your daily routine, your daily habits and stuff. So for Scorpio risings, it's really important on a daily basis to either be active, to be bold, to have freedom in your work environment, to be able to do bold things and stuff. These are things that can also be very trauma healing for Scorpios as well. Taking care of your health. This could also be managing your inflammation, taking supplements and doing things to reduce your inflammation, but doing something that's Aries in your sixth house related can be really beneficial to helping you to stay connected to the fire elements. And then I would say going in order, first you have the fire from Aries, and then right after, you could follow the astrological order. In the seventh house, they have Taurus. So it's about magnetizing resources from earthly elements, from other people, in a way that's harmonious, because Venus rules Taurus. It's a harmonious sign. So it's about working together. It's about being like, okay, what can you offer me that's going to offer value? What resource do you have to offer that you want to offer? Because Taurus is about managing your resources and doing it in a way that's of value and stuff. And this is also going to require Scorpios to make sure that, because seventh house is technically anyone and anything that isn't you, make sure that you have people in your life that are a source of stability, that recognize the values, that have healthy boundaries and stuff, that are a good example of what a source of stability is, because Scorpios are constantly death and rebirth, and it's, reversal energy, and everything's kind of like a shit show. So having that stabilizing energy of Taurus can be really beneficial. And then with the eighth house, it's the air sign, Gemini. They can use the energy of Gemini by really working with the organized chaos. Gemini is very simultaneous. It's kind of a little bit like ADHD. I'm not saying if you have Gemini, you have ADHD, although there's definitely patterns and stuff. There needs to be specific things in motion. But Scorpios tend to do well under chaos. That's sort of the environment that they're in, anyways. And Gemini is very much about kind of like organizing and structuring, or not necessarily like structuring, but organizing and kind of working with that collaborative sort of a way. And using that air sign is really beneficial, because Scorpio does have that strategic energy, but it's a fixed sign, whereas Gemini is more mutable. So using that mutability is beneficial and things of that nature. And Gemini is in the home house of Scorpio. So they kind of work well together. Regulating your nervous system is going to be really beneficial. And then Scorpio has energy to its own water source. So I do recommend this with your Taurus. I would say five senses. Think about ways that you can like taste things that you enjoy, see things that you like, hear things that are good for you, smell things, use essential oil, wear clothes, things that feel and stuff. Kind of like think of it like farthest away from you. So how can you bring that security? How can you cloak yourself with that security on a regular basis so that you feel safe enough to navigate in a more esoteric sort of way with the energy of your primal instincts, which you can do through practicing with that energy every day with your sixth house Aries. It works in unison together. And I find that Scorpios do really well when you work with all of these elements because it's a way to kind of bring that collective energy into you. And so I have that for Scorpio. And then for Libras, one of the things is Libra, I noticed, and I have my moon in Libra, is that Libras tend to struggle with being decisive. And what I noticed is that because Libras rule a set of two, Libras have a hard time just picking one thing. So pick two options. And also, for example, if you have Mars in Libra or Mars Saturn conjunction, these are like kind of like manifesting energies and stuff. I recommend manifesting in pairs. So if I want something, so like for example, I live in Bangkok, there's delicious street food. I really love beef liver. Or I'm sorry, yeah, beef liver. But they don't always have it. And I love beef liver and orange juice together. So what I'll do is I'll go and I'll buy orange juice and I walk outside and then I end up manifesting like the other thing that I want. Libra wants to be, it instinctively wants to couple up. So think of ways that you can work in pairs with things. You know, when you have a hard time with a singular thing, pick two things. You know, when you have a hard time starting something, include another person. Find ways, because Libra represents the scales, it needs to weigh two things in order to be in harmony. You know, you can't just do one thing and expect to function. It's like the scale is just, it's not going to work right. And I feel like a lot of times Libras are just told, just make a fucking decision. And it's like, that's not the environment that's optimal. That's not going to help a Libra. You need to work with the energy that works best for you. And the other thing is that Libras tend to struggle with lack of energy, relationships and stuff. The energy part be a little bit too much, but there are things related to your adrenal glands. So working on strengthening your adrenal glands with Libras are going to be really beneficial. Relationships. I'm actually going to talk about that more when I get to another sign. But one thing I do want to mention for Libras is, especially with the Halloween coming up, the next sign being the resource is a Scorpio. You can alchemize with shadow work, costume. Libra is Venus ruled, it's glamours. So think of like when there's like spells and stuff and people use glamour, right? They use color and makeup, you know, like think about what as a Libra, I would say like with Libras, when you want something, play that character, wear the outfits, have the things, use the transformative energy of Scorpio and stuff. Like use colors that are connected to certain planets or whatever you want to manifest in your life. If you're a Libra rising and you have like in your sixth house of Pisces, you have some like health issues or whatever, right? And you want to heal and you want support from the spirit realm. Pray, maybe have like a dress that has some sort of spiritual symbolic prayer, or use the energy of Pisces colors, you know, like have maybe like an outfit for each of the rising, like each of the houses, the areas of your life. You know, you have Scorpio in your second house when it comes to money. Maybe you have like a sexy black dress, and Aquarius in your third house. Maybe in your car you have something with like a an object from like a foreign country or a religious symbol or a horse, or when you're walking, you know, and you are, or you're trying to do a collaboration, or you're trying to connect with your local community, you know, maybe have something with a horse, you know, using art, aesthetics, playing a character, you know, think of like Halloween as like, you know, you're dressing up for what you want to manifest and materialize. That's the energy of Libra that can be really beneficial and kind of fun. It's almost like make what you want, like create costumes out of it. That can help with transformations. Now, with Virgo, it's similar to going back to using the Libra scales again, because Virgos are So again, the next sign being the resource of the previous sign, with Libra being the sign that comes after Virgo, and Virgo being the sign that rules problems or having to resolve problems and having challenges and issues. One of the things that I feel really bad about is that a lot of Virgos are told, like, if you're struggling, help other people. But if you have a hard time getting up, if you have a hard time breathing, that's really difficult for you to do, right? So in the masterclass, I do have information on, like, like the different, like, depending on where you're at. If you're working more with like the youthful Virgo that might be more overwhelmed, what you can do, versus if you're an adulting Virgo where you're at a space where you're managing problems, you can kind of work with that energy. But one of the things you can start doing right now is using the resource of the second sign of Libra as the scale that weighs the energy of Virgo and Leo energy. So think of it like, as a Virgo, it's like, okay, like, Virgo is in the sign that's about you, your first house. Think about, what do you want? Oftentimes Virgos are told, be in service of others, right? But start with, what do you want? Because it's your first house. Okay. And then think about, the third sign is Scorpio. Okay. And the third sign sextiles your ascendant. So it's already an easy aspect with Scorpio, which is about magnetizing resources from others. Think about what it is that you want. What do you want from others that can support you? And then Libra is about using both of those things to be like, okay, how can I support myself? How can I support other people? And this is a good way to use the energy of Libra season right now, too, is thinking about, okay, what daily routines do you have to do? What daily practices do you have to engage in? What things do you have to do to manage your health in order to be healthy, that's going to allow you to navigate your life, that's practical and that's the best for you as a Virgo rising? And doing this especially during Libra season, and then thinking about, who do you need to talk to, who do you need to connect with, who do you need to collaborate with in order to make this happen that can support you. And when you're imagining this and you're talking to someone, you can be like, this is what I want, this is what I can support, this is what I can offer you, and then getting into the energy of Scorpio, this is what I like, and communicating in a way that's using that Scorpio in your third house, being strategic, thinking about like how this is going to help you, how this is going to help other people, and being willing to go down the rabbit hole. Because I feel like a lot of Virgo risings, especially when you're younger, they're like thinking like, oh my God, I'm being too much. And, they have the most critical sign ruling them. So they might hesitate. And then with the energy of Libra, they're very indecisive. But when you strip that away and you think about, what is it that you want? What do you want to offer? What do you want from others? What connections do you need to make? And just know that actually, the more you communicate in a way where you go down the rabbit hole, the more you're working with that energy. The reason why you're overthinking is because you're actually here to. This can actually be really beneficial, and use the energy of Libra to weigh it out, to be like, okay, am I asking for too much without offering enough? Am I asking too much from other people, or am I not asking enough resources from Scorpio? Am I feeling physically to weigh this out a little bit more? Okay, I need to actually communicate with the other person what it is that I'm offering, what it is that I need to receive. And with Virgos being ruled by Mercury, you need to articulate these things on a regular basis. And I feel like this is something that Virgos just don't do. They kind of get into this loop. They kind of are in their own little world, and they're like, okay, I need to fix this. People expect me to fix this. I'm the admin. So fixer, whatever you may be, and they're just like, this is what I'm doing and stuff, and then they kind of forget themselves. So this is where all of a sudden Virgos are helping everyone, and then all of a sudden they're sick. So these are ways that you can work with that energy that's going to really help you. Now, for Leos, I feel like the two themes that I constantly see are related to success and relationships. But the first thing I want to start off with reminding people is that Leos are lions. And even though they're a fire sign, and lions do have a lot of energy and they expend a lot of energy hunting, it's so exhausting that they actually spend up 20 hours resting. And one of the issues that I've noticed that Leos have with a lot of my medical astrology clients is that they're operating out of their sixth house of habits with Capricorn, and Capricorns are hustlers. But hustling can be damaging to Leos. Like when you work hard, but it's important to make sure that you give yourself a lot of rest in between, which is something that a lot of people don't do. And this tends to happen more when there's trauma related to success, because the way that they deal with their problems, their fears, their relationship with success and feeling worthy is I have to work hard. I have to work hard in order to be worthy, in order to be worthy, in order to be worthy, and stuff. And then they're dysregulated by their nervous system with Aquarius opposing them. You guys are also going to benefit from the vitamin B12 that's designed for neurodivergence that I recommended and stuff. But it's like this thing where your sixth house can either support or harm you, because Capricorn is also about being efficient, productive, efficient, effective, automating things, systemizing things. So if you find yourself being constantly tired, having back problems, this, and you have a fear of success, you are tying your self-worth to being productive. This is where you're going to have to very much need to work on yourself so that you can find ways to actually give yourself permission to relax, systemize things, develop a taste for luxury so that you start to slow down. Luxury is slow, like fast fashion, cheap fashion, that's fast, but luxury, it's like it takes a little bit time, it paces themselves. So you want to connect with that more leisurely luxury energy of Leos and Lions and stuff. The other thing I would say is this is a relationship advice that chiropractors won't tell you, but I find it so interesting because I learned that as a Cancer rising, people were like, oh, like you have some of the worst luck with relationships. But I would actually say Leos have worse luck. Now, granted, I do have a Venus Almutin, which helps me, but Leos, your relationships are ruled by Saturn, and your sixth house of problems are also ruled by Saturn. And so oftentimes I find that, like, especially since the Leos are the most dramatic sign, and that's in your first house of your physical body, a lot of times when they have health issues, it's really dramatic. I've had so many clients that have had back issues and stuff that are actors, and they're just like, can you tell me when my back issue is going to get better? Am I going to be able to finish this shoot? Am I going to be able to do this? And then they don't know that the production company is also hiring me. And they're like, I don't know about this actor. Do you think that they're gonna like get like are they gonna be like ready in time, or should we hire someone else? And I'm like, ooh, Leo's a fixed sign. It takes a while. Saturn ruling your sixth house of your health issues and your seventh house of relationship. Saturn is a slow sign. And oftentimes when Leos pick crappy partners, it has a negative impact on your health, in your work environments. I've seen so many actors be told by production, if we're going to hire you, you need to like break up with whoever you're with, because they're like, you have way too much relationship issues. And, I don't even think that's legal to say, but I mean, as far as like legality, that's like the smallest of like, breaking the law and stuff. And it's like, I'm not like supporting that per se, but I understand where they're coming from, where it's like on a strategic level, it's like it's not sustainable. And a lot of times I've noticed, especially in this toxic patriarchal society, where Leo women are meant to be leaders, and your partner should be more Aquarian, someone who is collaborative, who isn't threatened by your authority. But a lot of straight women, they end up with guys who, in this toxic patriarchal society, are feeling threatened by them. So then, in order to make the relationship work, the women will kind of make themselves small, and they would have the worst back issues and stuff in like the most dramatic ways, where they're like, they're told they need to get surgery, spinal surgery, and then they break up with the person, and then everything goes back to normal. It's like it's crazy. So with Leos, you want to be especially careful with your relationships. And I do talk about like the ways that you can work with your fifth house with that, and steps that you can take, questionnaires that you can do, things that are like strategic and stuff. But that's just something I feel like a lot of times when people have relationship problems, they kind of like normalize it. And I really wish you could talk, Lana, because I would ask you questions with your moon in Leo, but um, yeah, so that's definitely something. I feel like sometimes people normalize it, but it's like that is not normal, you guys. So definitely like be mindful about that. And with Cancer risings, I'm a Cancer myself, so I have lots of opinions about this. My big thing is I like the thing that's annoying about being a Cancer rising is that you have a cardinal sign in an angular house. So usually we just want to kick off running, but as a water sign, we're supposed to pace ourselves. So there's like this desire to move forward, but something is stopping us, and we're just like, it's so uncomfortable. It makes us restless and we're frustrated. So something that's really helped me is I think of it as Cancer is the mother, it's the womb, right? It's the pregnant woman. And oftentimes, Cancer risings, we have an idea and we just want to kick off running with it, act as if we're fucking Aries and we're not. And so, one of the things that I have started doing is thinking about it like, okay, you have this idea, you want to do it, but where are you in the pregnancy? See yourself as a pregnant woman, okay? Are you even fucking pregnant? You have an idea. Did you even have sex? Are you even pregnant? Do you even know if you're pregnant? You can't just kick off trying to give birth to something that's like not even in existence yet, you know? And then it's like, okay, maybe you are pregnant. Where are you in the pregnancy? The first trimester, the second trimester, the third trimester? Do you need to actually be like moving around right now? Should you actually be resting? You know, like sometimes pregnancies are complicated and you really shouldn't be trying to do all the things. And so it's like, as a Cancer rising, you want to start something. We want to give birth to things because we are. I mean, you don't obviously have to be like a pregnant woman, but that's the archetype. You know, we're pregnant women. We want to give birth to things. We need to get pregnant. We need to find a man. We need to have sex. We need to know where we are in the pregnancy. And so a lot of times I now know when I want to kick off running, I'm like, wait, I just had an idea. I need to like pace it, you know, because Cancers are anti-logical and stuff because it's the opposite of Capricorn, which is really strategic. And so we're very go with the flow. So it can be kind of difficult for us to figure out where we are. But in our third house of Virgo, we have logic ruling us. So think about things in a linear order, like what actually makes sense. And also using the energy of Leo, like what inspires us, what is going to make us want to get started. I think that this is a big thing. And also learning to go with the flow in a way that actually takes accountability. One of the things that frustrates me is that sometimes people say I'm just going with the flow without understanding what it means, without taking responsibility. Going with the flow, that's a lunar energy. There are many moon phases, many cycles. It's very cyclical. It's actually very specific. When you're going with the flow and you're actually doing it in a way that makes sense, there are so many steps involved. It's not just like, I'm just going with the flow. You're not a passive participant. The moon is the mother. Mothers and pregnant women are not passive. There's a lot of fucking work that goes into it, you guys. So I think that's the other thing is that Cancer risings, we need to be patient with ourselves. It's almost like we're a pregnant woman. Like we shouldn't just run off and do everything we want to do. There's a reason why our body is like, sit your ass down. So kind of working with those energies and stuff, I think helps. And Cancers are ruled by crabs. Crabs walk sideways. Don't go direct. It tends to not work anyways. So now I think about what can I do to waste time and be inefficient and stuff. Because if all I have to do is take 5 steps forward, but if I walk sideways, it's gonna take me 20 steps. I'm already now taking my time. I'm now feeding the energy of Cancer moving slowly. So buy yourself some time, basically. Um, and then with Gemini, I would say, first of all, asking yourself, which twin are you? That's the big thing because Gemini is a twin and you want to work with both sides of your twin. And they say, when I say which twin are you, there's this story where they say that like one twin is human and one is an immortal. And so it's about like the human likes the new things, and that's why Geminis love to start new things. They're represented by toddlers and stuff. You know, they've a short attention span. They're very excited, very enthusiastic, but they don't have necessarily the best follow through. But that's also because the human twin is scared of endings. It's scared of deaths because it sees it as like it's scared of ending and completing something because it sees it as death. So I'm not excusing Geminis who don't follow through, but once I learned that it's like I have empathy for why they're scared. You know, if you think like ending something is going to kill you, of course there's going to be a fear involved. But the immortal twin knows that death is just the beginning. It's an illusion, that endings aren't actually real. So ask yourself, which Gemini are you? Because a lot of times people tend to get stuck in their human Gemini because they start things without finishing it. But Gemini is a mutable sign. Mutable is actually like, it can also end things. You've got the cardinal, you get the beginning, you get the fixed sign, the mutable. It's back and forth, but it can close things, especially since Gemini is about making connections. So it's connecting you from the beginning, the middle, and the end. So asking yourself, which twin are you? And if you are scared of ending things, it's going to be a good sign for you to connect more with the spirituality, the esoteric things, and realizing that things aren't really ending. It's not really about death. If you have a hard time starting things and stuff because you're ungrounded, connect more with your inner child, the part of you that's excitable, that pick things that like you have an interest-based nervous system on in order to start things. And I would say that the two things that Geminis should work on is embrace your inner child and learn to feel at home. And I say this because Gemini is Mercury ruled. Mercury also rules your fourth house of your home, but it's ruled by Virgo. But this is where Virgo is, and Virgo is the critical sign. So it's a little bit more like, it has a little bit more challenges than like Gemini. Gemini is more like the fun Mercury sign and stuff. But the sign that comes after that supports Cancer, which is also about your home. So this is very much about, when it comes to Gemini, there's similarities with Gemini and some of the Aquarius stuff, which is why I'm covering a little bit less now. But there's similarities with like the sensitized nervous system. There's parallels with Sagittarius that I mentioned. So with Geminis, it's like there's anxiety, and it doesn't necessarily stop Geminis from doing things, but it might stop you guys from starting things. So regulating your nervous system can help with that, giving you that sense of stability. Geminis, because they rule toddlers, they often look to parents, to their mothers, to their family to co-regulate and create that sense of safety. So Geminis, it's important to feel safe. If you don't have that with your mom, Cancers rule dogs. Animals regulate their nervous systems are regulated because they shake when they have trauma. So have pets. This is something that can very much support you. It can also help you to process your traumas too, because you have Scorpio, trauma healing sign in your sixth house and stuff. So this could also help with health issues as well. If you can't have your own dog, maybe go to a pet shelter. Sometimes you can ask, like when my sister and her husband went to a trip to Hawaii, they scheduled places where they asked, like, can we go to the pound and take a dog out? And they would go hiking and they would bring a dog for the day. And the dog had such a good time, and they were traveling, so they obviously had to take the dog back. But doing little things like that can be really beneficial for you. So these are things that you can do to support yourself. And also some of the things that can help you to get started and initiate and collaborate and do the things that you're meant to do as a Gemini rising is to learn to feel at home and to create an organized, practical home. As a Gemini, yes, you're very scattered, but your home should be very organized, very clean. Make it easy to clean because you are ruled by the sign that rules adolescents. I'm sorry, that too, but toddlers. Toddlers, you can train them to clean, yes, but you can't make it complicated. So think about if you were to create an environment that is easy to clean, even for a toddler, which is you. I'm not saying that you're like, immature, but working with your energy, make sure that it is easy for you to keep clean, organized, and stuff. And learn to feel at home with creating routines and being critical, not so that you can like feel shitty, but you can learn to be like, okay, these are some problems that I have. Here are some ways that I can correct it. And using learn to feel at home fixing things basically and correcting things. This is going to help you to work with like the more beneficial energy of Gemini rather than like that raw exposed nerves and like the dysregulated nervous system that could come with being a Gemini rising. With Taurus risings, it's important for you to create a comfortable life for yourself. Like I said, I see Tauruses as the signs that teach us how to human. Some things to work on for Taurus risings is think about what your core values are and what security means for you, and making sure that you have these things in your life and navigate your life to ensure that you have these things. Do it in a way that's sustainable, that's practical, that makes sense and stuff. But the thing is, where you have Taurus in your chart, the energy moves the slowest. So you can kind of get like, you have the maintaining fixed sign in the sign that's initiating. So sometimes you can kind of like get stuck, right? And so this is why for Tauruses, whatever you decide to do, you want to make sure that you're doing the best, because if you're doing something unhealthy, you tend to stay in that loop a little bit more. It's a little bit harder to disrupt that. But also sometimes, even with good things, it may be difficult for you to start things. So there are other parts of your chart that you can look at in order to create change. Since Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus also rules your sixth house with the Libra. This could also be habitually working with another person and stuff. This works especially well if you have a good Venus. If you have a bad Venus, then maybe I don't recommend this, because then you might just like couple up with someone at work that is problematic, or you just don't know, but it could be about you and getting support from another person. This could be about just working with yourself, even because Taurus is on your ascendant, and it's about managing your resources, using your sixth house, working with yourself, being like, okay, what can I offer? What can someone else offer me? What do I want? How can there be mutual benefit? Working with that kind of energy, because Libra is a cardinal sign. It is an Acadient house, but it's you have every day to practice with that energy, with it being about your daily routines. So this is something that you can work with. In your second house of Gemini, because the next sign dissolves the energy of the previous sign, Taurus is the most present sign, it's the most stabilizing sign, and Gemini is the most mutable, ungrounded, because it's an air sign, it's a mutable sign. It's a little bit all over the place, right? But Gemini also is about making connections. Gemini rules bridges for that reason. So let Gemini be that bridge that inspires a Taurus to take your ascendant to take action. It could also be getting yourself excited. It could be connecting with family, neighbors, friends, collaboration in order to get started. Use writing, regulate your nervous system in order to create change. Create excitability that makes your Taurus want to move in a way where it's security oriented. So Taurus wants to do that. Taurus also likes to move towards a luxury. You want to say, like, so Taurus might be lazy, but if you say, hey, you live in a really nice studio, but I can get you into a really nice bougie luxury 1-bedroom apartment. I could get you into a 2-bedroom loft luxury apartment. I can get you into a mansion. These things are going to inspire the Taurus to want to move, particularly if they can use their resources. And this is where Gemini could be really valuable, because Gemini is about information. Taurus is about your own resources. Your second house is about your resources. So when you start having knowledge about, okay, these are the resources that I have that's going to support me, that's going to connect me, that's going to inspire Tauruses to want to make change. So that's a big thing. But think of it like Gemini is that bridge, right? You can get excited, but it also can be kind of like destabilizing energy. So you want to work with the energy of Cancer. Again, Cancer is it's sextiles the ascendant. I know I'm working with like a lot of the lower part of the chart now, but that's because I have so much to cover. I was like, I need to like focus. But the third house is ruled by Cancer. Both Taurus and Cancer do well with comfort. We live in a world that's like, feel the fear, just do it anyway. Sometimes you just have to do it. But with Tauruses and Cancers, it's different. You have to wait until you feel comfortable. And when Cancers feel comfortable and stuff, they can take action and will take action because it's a cardinal sign. And work with that energy of Cancer rising, where I mentioned making sure where you are in the pregnancy. That can also help a Taurus to pace yourself. But it's important to know if you're Taurus rising or Cancer rising or Pisces rising, you're here to move a little bit slower. Same thing with like Capricorn, a little bit with Libra risings too. You have a different time frame. But what's important is to make sure that you know the difference between, are you procrastinating or repeating patterns to prevent change, or are you actually waiting for aligned timing? That's going to be really important. And with Tauruses in particular, even if you think that you're supposed to be moving or if people are trying to push you, one of the things, and I was actually talking about this not too long ago, people think Aries people are scary, and they are, and Scorpios are scary, and they are. But the difference is, Aries, when they attack, they're inherently, I mean, not all Aries, I'm talking about like the lower manifestations, but Aries rules violence. But Aries who engage in that tend to know themselves. They're not really doing it necessarily to kill, they're doing it to attack, sure, but they know what they're generally doing. Scorpios, especially, also same thing, also Mars ruled. And they're ruled by scorpions that have a venom that can release and determine how much poison, they can dictate how much poison to give you to actually kill you or just decapitate or just incapacitate you. But Tauruses, it's like when they get angry, it's like they're possessed. Nobody knows what they're going to do, including them, which makes them actually more dangerous because ignorance is extremely dangerous. So for Tauruses, for yourself and other people who are Tauruses, like it sounds crazy, but like I've learned to trust myself and it's in my chart and stuff. You and Nicola were telling me about it. It wasn't fun to hear, but it was true. I have a lot of clients that like deal with like crazy things in their lives. And so when I have clients that are Taurus risings or Scorpio risings and they have Taurus partners or, like partners that like push them, I always tell them, you need to be careful. Like people don't realize, but think about like Tauruses are ruled by bulls. When they get angry, what happens? Their nose flares up, their neck starts to kind of change, right? If you really pay attention, it takes a lot to piss a Taurus off, but when they start getting angry, their noses start flaring, their nostrils flare, their neck starts moving. And when I look at charts, obviously I'm very cautious about this. You have to consider a lot of different things. Sometimes the chart does indicate violence. We can all be violent under any circumstance. So let's be real, right? But some people have greater risks, and I tell them, I'm like, you need to keep an eye out for when these things flare up, especially Taurus risings. And I've had so many people tell me, like, oh my God, right before my husband snapped, this happened. And the husband will also get scared. I've seen men actually break down crying because they didn't know that was in them, kind of thing. These are things that you do want to keep an eye out for. Um, Now, with Aries, last sign, I like to see Aries as the fuck around and find out kind of sign, right? If you're Saturn ruled, I'm like, you're the don't fuck around, don't find out. But with Aries, you're ruled by a ram that has like horns for blunt force trauma and stuff. So wherever you have Aries in your chart, you're here to take risks and stuff. But one of the things that I do want to clarify that I think is, I don't agree with it. Sometimes I see information and it gives me signs like, okay, to me this is a common theme that a lot of people say about Aries that I don't agree with. And to me, it's an indicator of how the toxic patriarchy has infiltrated the astrology community, where because they say that like water signs are emotional, they're like fire signs are the next elements, the next sign, they're not emotional, which I totally disagree with. And they say Aries aren't emotional, but Aries, people recognize rules anger. Anger is a fucking emotion, and people forget that Aries rules newborns. So I personally think that Aries actually feel the emotional spectrum like newborns, which are like a raw nerve. It's just people don't realize it because they do have Cancer, their feeling sign in the fourth house, which is squared. So there's this challenging energy. And it's like it's hidden behind like closed doors. So people don't realize that. But I think that one of the biggest disservice that we um do to Aries is say, oh, they're not emotional or they can handle it. They're so strong. It's like, no, like imagine it's like, and people will do a lot to an Aries because they think people can take it. And it's like, you wouldn't do that to a fucking newborn. And don't get me wrong, yes, Aries are strong. You're represented by a ram, like I'm hoping that I'm speaking to you and you're resonating with what I'm saying as an Aries Lada. But it's like, so yes, there's a part of you that it's like, yes, like you are a ram, like you are fucking like hardcore and badass, 100%. And also you're represented by a newborn. And sometimes people put so much in an Aries because they think you can take, they think that like, oh, you can take it kind of thing, but you would never do that to a fucking newborn. It's like, I don't think that it's fair to put too much on someone just because you think they can take it. Like, that's not fair. That's going to weigh on people and stuff. And one of the things that I mentioned, especially for Aries women, especially since like, we live in a world where it's like Aries, our quality, like behavior in men is glorified, but in women, it's villainized, But here's the thing, if you're an Aries rising, an Aries sun, Aries moon, the ruler of your ascendant is in Aries and you're a woman, like, I believe you're here to be feral. And what I actually coin Aries moon women is I say you need to be a feral queen. And because it's like people are so quick to talk about how the sun is about the king, but people forget that the moon is the queen. And so if you're an Aries moon or you're a woman that's an Aries, it's kind of the same theme, I feel like Aries, you were here to be a feral queen. So you need to let go of the conditioning of like, oh, I'm too much, or like I'm too primal, I'm too savage. That's what you're here for. And what's interesting is that even with a lot of my clients that are like Libra risings and stuff, or even people who just have like relationship issues, especially like women that say that they've been in like abusive relationships, or the people that they've been with have like harmed them in some way. These are things where it shows that like,
Oh, Jaymie, hello?
you are constantly like that are just have these patterns of like being in relationships where people are just like having all these issues. I tell people like, okay, you know what, like, one, you need to decenter yourself around relationships. If you're in a loop, you need to create a pattern disrupt, but also you need to own up to yourself and you need to be the feral queen, because clearly your partner is abusing the energy of Aries. So you need to be the one to take the throne and you need to use it responsibly. You need to take your power back. Because when I see Aries women getting abused in relationships, it's because you're not stepping into your power. Because when Aries women are acting like fucking feral queens, nobody's gonna fuck with you because everyone's gonna be scared of you. So I'm just, it's like, it's this thing. I'm not saying go around like attacking people, but like be like step up, like, and we're conditioned to think we can't do that. That's too much. That's this, but that's actually what we're literally here to do. So, and I would say this for wherever we have Aries in our chart, this is where we get to be feral. Like, I have Aries in my 10th house. I'm very much like just rough it out, fuck around, find out, and we'll see what happens. I'll figure it out along the way. That's the energy that works well for me in that area of my chart. And with Aries, like, it's very much about like being who you are in like the very pure, raw, unfiltered way, which is why I do also think working with your fifth house is really important, because this is about unleashing yourself to connect with your fifth house, Leo, which is about the most unique you part of your Leo, your sun. It's about what makes you unique and independent and makes you stand out. I think it's so important for Aries to embrace these qualities, and for people to give you the space to be emotional. Like, Aries are actually very emotional. So those are my thoughts. Are you able to talk now?
I
I
don't know if anyone else
like
here.
videos like this with you because you're like, I like the insights that you give and stuff. So that's why I was so excited to talk about this, because I was like, this one will be fun for both of us. And look at this.
Well,
I feel
I think
so
I think others hear
betrayed.
me, so we can say goodbye. And I will put tomorrow on under this video description with link to Jamie's in-depth course on the 12 signs if you're interested to take this masterclass, which will start very soon. And thank you so much, Jaymie, for the insights that you gave us, very different psychological perspective, how you mixed the houses, not just the sign, because we're not one sign, we're a mixture of all 12 signs in different areas of life. So thank you so much again. Thank you everyone for joining us live or watching the recording. And if you'd like to contact Jaymie, I'm putting a link below. Thank you.
Okay. Luckily, other people can hear you, so I could watch the replay. I'm starting to wonder. I'm like, I wonder if maybe I should have paused and let you give your comments in between, so that like other people could have heard it. But
Yeah, but you wouldn't have heard it then. So
all
anyway, thank
right.
you. That's
Well, it was
fascinating.
nice talking, I guess. I
Okay.
want to say it was nice talking to you and with you, but
I'm not sure how